We're delighted to have you for this installment of the Census Bureau's 2021 Data Summit Series. My name is Paulina Lopez, and I am a partnership specialist with the Denver-Dallas region, and I am your host for today. So before I go into the agenda, I'd like to cover some basic information and house rules. Because of the number of participants on this webinar, everyone has been muted. We encourage everyone to utilize the chat to ask your questions, which we will answer at the end of the webinar. Any general questions that are not answered, please contact ask.census.gov. And for your convenience and future reference, you can expect a PDF copy of today's presentation and a resource sheet in 2 business days. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at a later date. So for those who do not wish to be recorded, please take this time to opt out and drop from the session. Today's session will present a high-level overview of economic data products and will demonstrate how they can be used to identify data-driven solutions to challenges. Our agenda for today includes opening remarks from our Denver-Dallas Regional Director, Kathy Lacey, followed by Census Bureau partner Rachel Moskowitz with the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. Arlene Dowell with the Data Users Trade and Outreach Branch at the U.S. Census Bureau will be our key presenter for today. And after our key presenter, there will be a question and answer session. So please post your questions in the chat for all panelists so that we can read your question out loud after Arlene's presentation. Before I turn it over to our speakers for opening remarks, I'd like to provide a high-level update on the 2020 census. On April 26, 2021, the U.S. Census Bureau released population counts to be used for apportioning the seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. So to view this information on individual state populations, please visit census.gov. For any media-related inquiries, you should be referred to PIO at census.gov. As an additional resource, you can find a link to our apportionment press kit at the link listed on this slide. Also, redistricting data is currently scheduled to be released by August 16, 2021 in the legacy format, and will include information states need to redraw their legislative boundaries. This data includes block-level counts of populations. The full redistricting data with toolkits will be delivered by September 30th, 2021 on data.census.gov. To begin our opening remarks, we welcome Denver-Dallas Regional Director, Kathy Lacey, to say a few words. Kathy?
Thank you so much, Paulina, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. We thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We are coming off of our 2020 census and have created so many wonderful partnerships out there. So we hope that many of you are our partners and you will find the information that is going to be presented today that it will help make your day-to-day job much easier. We love sharing the tools that we have created just to make life a little bit easier. So today, I'm thrilled that we have Rachel Moskowitz from New Mexico who's joining us today. And we also have our presenter, Arlene Dow, from our headquarters office. So those are all the remarks I'm going to make, but I'm just going to thank you again so much for joining us today. And I hope that this will be a worthwhile period of time for you today. Thank you so much, Paulina.
Thank you, Kathy, for joining us today. And now we welcome our census partner, Rachel Moskowitz, to say a few words as well. Rachel is the Bureau Chief of Economic Research and Analysis with the Labor Market Information Branch of the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. Rachel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paulina. I'm the Labor Market Information Director for New Mexico. LEHD has been a valuable tool to help measure the economic health of our state. We have used job-to-job flows to measure job mobility across state lines and between our metropolitan areas, quarterly workforce indicators to measure the number of new hires, and LEHD origin destination employment statistics data, or OnTheMap, to study commuting patterns. So use LEHD data to enhance your understanding of your local economy. Please enjoy Arlene's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for being a proud Census partner and for joining us today. Our key presenter is Arlene Dowell, and Arlene is a program analyst for the Data Users Trade and Outreach branch at the U.S. Census Bureau. She has been training people on LEHD products for over 10 years, and she has a master's in communications and a bachelor's in public relations from Hawaii Pacific University. As a reminder, for all of our attendees today, if you have any questions for Arlene, please post them on the chat box directed to all panelists so we can read your questions during the question and answer portion of this webinar. So Arlene, the floor is yours, and I'll pass the ball so that you can start sharing your screen.
All right, can everybody see my screen? I hope so. Thank you, Paulina, for that introduction, and thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to share the Longitudinal Employer-Household Dynamics products with you. Today, I'll be presenting Economic Recovery Workforce Patterns. Unlike the American Community Survey and the Economic Census, the Longitudinal Employer-Household Dynamics Program, or LEHD, is not dependent on the survey responders. LEHD is a unique link between employer and employee data for the U.S. LEHD is a voluntary federal-state partnership that was developed in 1990 with just a few states. Under the partnership, states send their unemployment insurance, or UI, wage records and their quarterly Census of Employment Wage Data, or QCEW, to us, which then is combined with censuses and surveys to create new dynamic information on workers to produce public use data products as well as microdata for research. The UI records give us job data, the QCEW gives us firm data, and our person data comes from censuses and surveys. When I started promoting LEHD in 2010, we had 2 data sets and 3 data tools. Now, LEHD has 5 different data sets with 7 applications for easy access to these data sets. Each data set, along with each data tool, is unique in its own way. If you are curious about employment, hires, separations, turnovers, and earnings, you would look at the Quarterly Workforce Indicators, or QWI, utilizing the QWI Explorer or the LED extraction tool. This data set is also accessible through the Census Bureau API. If you want to look at employment for detailed and customized geography, you would look at the LEHD Origin Destination Employee Statistics, or LOADS data, using the OnTheMap or OnTheMap for Emergency Management data tools. One sidebar, OnTheMap for Emergency Management is the only data tool that has population data along with data from other federal agencies in LEHD. If you want to look at statistics on job mobility across state boundaries or industries, transitions between jobs by timing and firm or worker characteristics, or earning changes due to job changes, you would use our job-to-job or J2J flows data using the J2J Explorer. One of our new data sets is the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes, or PSEO. This experimental data set reports earnings by institution, degree field, degree level, and graduation cohort for 1, 5, and 10 years after graduation. The current release includes Colorado, Connecticut, Indiana, Louisiana, Maine, and New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Wisconsin. Future releases will include more post-secondary institutions. Finally, our latest data set, Veterans Employment Outcomes, or VEO. This new experimental data set reports earnings and employment outcomes for U.S. Army enlisted veterans 1, 5, and 10 years after discharge by military occupation, rank, demographics, industry, and geography of employment. In addition to the data tools, raw data downloads are available, along with LEHD microdata for approved projects through our secure Census Research data centers. Since this is a webinar on economic recovery, let's look at an example of the impact before we look at recovery. I would like to point out that LEHD does not have COVID-19 data, but there have been examples on how it can be useful to analyze the workforce during this pandemic. In an article written last year towards the beginning of the pandemic, the loads data was used to track where workers from a plant in Minnehaha County, South Dakota resided. The data showed that many that worked in Minnehaha also lived in Minnehaha, but the next largest numbers of workers resided in Lincoln County. The data also found a number of Native Americans who worked at the plant and resided on nearby reservations, where there is a lack of medical resources to a vulnerable population. OnTheMap is a web-based mapping and reporting application that shows where workers work and where they live. It provides companion reports on age, earnings, industry distribution, race, ethnicity, educational attainment, and sex. We have data from 2002 through 2018 for most of the 50 states, including DC. You can customize the selection area as low as the census block with disclosure protection. And input-output reports are available, which means you can import and export shapefiles and download and print reports and maps. OnTheMap has 6 different analyses that you can explore. If you want to look at an overview of the selected area of where a worker works or lives, you can choose the area profile, which has more than 30 different characteristics, such as worker age, earnings, industry, race, ethnicity, education, and worker sex. Area comparison compares worker characteristics such as job characteristics and geography of both where the worker works and where the worker lives. Distance direction tells us how far people are traveling to their workplace and what direction. Destination tells us what city, county, metro, zip code, or block people are traveling from to work in the selected area. And then we can analyze the inflow-outflow, which shows us how many people are traveling into the area to work and how many people live and work in the area. In this screenshot, I used the example from Minnehaha and selected Minnehaha County to analyze using the area profile. This shot is highlighting the manufacturing industry in the selected area. We can see that there are 11,000 workers. The map is also just showing jobs in manufacturing. The darker and bigger the circles, the more manufacturing jobs in that block. The article also mentioned that the next largest hotspot could be Lincoln County due to how many workers commute from Lincoln County to Minnehaha. This screenshot shows the destination analysis of the top 10 counties that commute into Minnehaha, and you can see that Lincoln County has nearly 17,000 workers commuting to Minnehaha. The spokes represent the density of the workers traveling to Minnehaha. The darker the spoke, the more workers come from that county. The spoke also shows the direction of where people are traveling from. Let's jump to the OnTheMap sister map, OnTheMap for Emergency Management. This is a screenshot taken a couple weeks ago. At the time, it was real-time data. OnTheMap for Emergency Management has been named mission critical by the Department of Commerce. That means if anything should happen, such as a shutdown, the application will continue to be available to the public. OnTheMap for Emergency Management tracks tropical storms and hurricanes, which is the green wind swaths, floods, which is the yellow houses, and freezing temperatures and snowfalls, which is the blue and pink snowflakes. All of this data comes from our sister agency, NOAA, or the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. OnTheMap for Emergency Management also tracks fires from data from the Department of Agriculture and Department of Interior, which is the red flames. And finally, disaster declaration areas for FEMA are in the orange life preservers or just orange, combined with census data from ACS, decennial, and loads. In 2020, all 50 states were declared disaster declaration areas at the same time due to COVID-19, which is why the U.S. is an opaque orange color. So in keeping with the article referencing Minnehaha and our large pork manufacturer in South Dakota was deemed a disaster declaration area, the FEMA declaration for South Dakota COVID-19 is EM 3475. Here we can use the OnTheMap for emergency management to look at vulnerabilities of the population of Minnehaha, such as those 65 or older living alone or disability or race or poverty status. So let's go live. So I've already pulled up the LEHD website, which is lehd.ces.census.gov. And here on the left side of the screen, you can see that all of our applications are listed there for easy access. I'm going to go ahead and click on OnTheMap for emergency management. And I'm going to recreate the screenshot that we saw in the PowerPoint. So here in the search box, I'm just going to type in EM-3475, and automatically COVID-19 pandemic in South Dakota pops up. So I'll click on that, and then the map zooms into South Dakota. Now we can look at the vulnerabilities, but we can look at the vulnerabilities as low as the county level. So I can click on event area, and I can change the event area with the geography type, and I'll click on the arrow. I'll scroll down to counties, and then I'll just click on Minnehaha, and then I'll click select, and then the map zooms into Minnehaha, and we can see that the total population in households, and even on the left-hand side, you can see the table. So the total is 182,470. And then we can scroll down and we can see all of the vulnerabilities, such as the race. So we also talked about the Native American Indians. So if I click on American Indian, Alaska Native alone, the dark spots show the density of how many Native Americans are in that area. And then we can scroll down and we can also look at the disability status by age. So here, I'll click on that, and then I'll go down the table and click on 65 years and over. And then again, the map updates with the density of the most populated 65 years with disabilities in the dark blue. All right, going back to the PowerPoint, I wanted to, sorry to flip back and forth on the map, but I wanted to touch on something more regarding the impact of COVID-19 by looking at DC, which employs the largest number of federal employees in the country. Using the inflow-outflow, we can see before the pandemic, there were 453,141 workers traveling into the area to work. We can see that 193,587 live and work in the area. And then we can see 98,104 travel out of the area to work. So let's go live to do this one. So going back to my lehd.ces.census.gov tab, on the left-hand side, we're going to go ahead and click on OnTheMap. And everything is very intuitive in all of our applications. So I'll go ahead and type in District of Columbia. And I'll click on the search. And any geography with the words District of Columbia pops up. So all of the bold areas is where I could actually click on, but I'm going to click on District of Columbia counties. And then we see another pop-up. So this tells us what the selected area is, it zooms into it on the map, and you can see what the square feet or the square miles are, and you can also see how many census blocks are in that selected area. So I'll go ahead and click on the blue, Perform Analysis on Selection Area. And here is where we have our analysis setting. So the first column is the home or work. You can choose whether you want to look at where the worker lives or where the worker works. So it automatically defaults to work, I'm sorry. And then we talked about the analysis types earlier, but if you want to know what they are, if you hover over any question mark throughout the application, it gives you a description of what you're looking at. So here, I'm going to go ahead and click on Inflow, Outflow, and I'm just going to keep it at the 2018. Currently, that is the most current data we have. 2019 is hopefully coming out late this year or early next year. And then here, I'll go ahead and click on primary jobs. So this area, and it gives a description too, but just to let you know, primary job actually includes the federal employment. And it also is the area where the worker has the most income. All jobs includes jobs that workers might have more than one job. They might have maybe one or two part-time jobs. And then all private jobs and private primary jobs are the same, but they're just private. So keeping it at primary jobs, 2018, inflow, outflow, and work, you'll see this lightning bolt go with an exclamation point that's bolded. I'll click on that. And now I've recreated the same screenshot that I had earlier in the PowerPoint for DC. Okay, flipping back to the PowerPoint. So this is a screenshot of the area profile of DC displaying the different industries. If we examine the number of workers for each industry when the pandemic first hit, we could speculate who was not working and who was working remotely. Either way, that was thousands of people. 156,568 alone were government employees, and that's not including military, DIA, CIA, or FBI, to name a few. All inclusions and exclusions for the federal scope can be found on our website under the Help and Documentation page under Data Sources. Now let's look at ways we can analyze the workforce pattern to recover. Using the Quarterly Workforce Indicator, or QWI Explorer, we can see that the healthcare and social assistance had the largest employment during 2020 Q1 with more than 20 million jobs. This number will probably go higher once we get all the Q2 data. But in regards to recovery, we have to look at low-skilled workers who may have been affected due to the lack of education. These are the people who probably did not have jobs that allowed remote work. In this screenshot, we can see that the top 4 states with the highest number of low-skilled workers were California, Texas, Florida, and New York. This is due to high population. However, following those states were Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, and North Carolina. And just to define low-skilled workers, we use the high school or equivalent with no college. Using the QWI Explorer, we can also look at the earnings of the low-skilled workers, where the lowest states were Montana, Idaho, West Virginia, Maine, and South Carolina. You can see that the monthly earnings in Montana was $3,670. You can also compare how much someone with a degree earns in the state of Montana, which is $5,759. Now let's look at the industries these low-skilled workers are working in. The top industry is healthcare and social assistance, retail trade, manufacturing, and accommodations and food services, which all but healthcare was probably shut down, and the rest are not good options for remote working. So let's go live for this application. Again, I'll just go back to the lehd.ces.census.gov, and I'll click on that, and we can go down to the QWI Explorer, which is the second to the last bullet under applications. And I'll click on that. So the application automatically opens to California for me. I'm not sure how it's opening for you. Usually it opens to the state that you reside in, but I'm not in California, but we're going to go ahead and change that anyway. So we'll change California to the United States, and the indicator, it'll say conflict, but I'm going to say go ahead and continue. And here, I'm also going to change the age to NAICS sector. And then if I click on the highest, we can see that that is healthcare. So let me scroll down just a little bit so you can see the total. And this total was in 2015, Q3. But if we scroll down, we can see in 2020, Q1, that the total was 20,360,295 employees in healthcare nationwide. So that's very fascinating. Moving on, Job to Job or J2J Flows Explorer can show us work patterns from past recessions. So the J2J data is very complex, but the data tools that LEHD creates are very intuitive. As you can see, the steps are numbered, and as you make your choices, the next option lights up blue for you to choose. And if you're not sure what you want to look at, the application gives you recommendations, and you can easily change the geography to an area you want to look at. In another article, this one was from the Washington Post. This talked about how men during the recessions were going from blue-collar jobs to pink-collar jobs and earning more than they did in jobs such as construction or manufacturing. In this example, I used the state of Arizona and looked at what industries male workers in manufacturing and construction were going into if they were leaving construction and manufacturing. According to this bipartite chart, the highest industry was administration and support services, followed by retail trade. So let's go live to recreate this. Once again, I'll click on the tab that says LEHD. I'll go to Job Explorer, which is at the top. And here, so we have start at number 1, and I just wanted to show you all of the other options that you can use. So if it says, are hires to jobs in California coming from non-employment or another job, you can actually click on that blue text, and then you can put in your own state or your own area. This goes all the way down to the metropolitan areas. So we're going to go here, and we're going to check on the little arrow, and we're going to use separation from, because we want to look at those leaving the industries. So I'm going to click on this, the geography, and I'll go ahead and click on Arizona, and then I'll go ahead and click on construction for now. And at this point, I want to look at which industry. So you see in the second block where it has number 2, then choose an analysis, that the areas are highlighted that you can choose. So we're going to go ahead and click on which industries. And then here, right now, you can see that construction is tall because we haven't taken that out. But I'm going to change it all up, and I hope I don't confuse anybody. But here, I'm going to use the origin NAICS sector. And then I'm going to click on this where the underlined text was. And I'm going to select none. And then I'm just going to look at construction and manufacturing. And you can click on Save Changes. Then under the group, I'm going to go ahead and look at the destination NAICS sector. And we're going to click on that because we really don't want to look at if they're going from construction to construction or manufacturing to manufacturing, because that's not always that interesting. So I'll go ahead and unclick that. And I'll click on Save Changes. And once I do that, I like to use this. This is my favorite icon. So I'll click on Bipartite. And this kind of gives you this cool chart that you can look at. So if you look at construction, the main industry that those that were in construction go into is administration and support services, same as manufacturing. That's the most. And you can see retail and wholesale trade are also top runners, or at least the second runners. Oh, and I forgot to do this, but you can also click on the sex, and we just want to look at males. So there we go again. Okay. So to pivot to recovery, we can use the post-secondary employment outcomes, or PSEO. So PSEO is an experimental tabulation that highlights employment and earnings outcomes for college and university graduates. By matching university transcript data with a national database of jobs, PSEO provides annual earnings of graduates in the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile, and traces graduate movements from post-secondary institution, degree level, and degree major to employment by industry and geographic labor markets. Transcript data is provided to the Census Bureau by higher education systems and individual colleges and universities through the data sharing agreements with the Census Bureau. The current releases includes everything on the right-hand side. So you can see Texas, Colorado, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Maine, and Ohio. And we have more to come. In this screenshot, you see the earnings after 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years post-graduation for business management, health profession education, and computer and IT through the City College of New York. And you can, according to this, you can see that the healthcare of those who earn bachelor's degree after 10 years is the most lucrative. We can also look at the industries these degree programs end up going into. So the top industry that all of these programs go into is healthcare and social assistance, followed by educational services. The application can also look at geography and where these students ended up. So majority of students from CUNY stayed in New York, followed by South Atlantic region and the Mid-Atlantic region. So let's go live again. Okay, I'm going back to my tab. I'm going to go ahead and click on PSEO Explorer. So it automatically pops up into Colorado since that's it goes in alphabetical order. And here you can see that this is the 1, 5, and 10-year post-graduation earnings for those in business management and marketing and related support services. And then on the right-hand side is social science. So you can go through the whole application and pick whatever you want. So I'll show you how that works. So we'll click on the state, And then I'm going to go ahead and go to New York because that's where I created the last screenshot. And instead of Queen College, we're going to go ahead and click on City College of New York, or CUNY. So it still has the social sciences clicked on, so I'm going to unclick that. I'm going to click on Education, Health, and Computer and IT. So we can see the same as we did in the PowerPoint. And once again, the top earnings for 10 years after graduation was the health profession, and we see that they earn $121,145. So then we're going to go up back to the left-hand side, and I'm going to click on flows. And now it's looking at all of the industries that we can go into. So we see that we have numbers, which is education, which is 618, and the health, it goes into healthcare is the top, educational services is the next. If you want to look at percentages versus numbers, there's a button here where it says display down at the bottom on the left-hand side. I'll click on share. And now we can look at it in percentages because percentages is easier to look at. Then we want to look at the geography. So we click on Destination Flows Geography. And now we can see that those graduating from CUNY, 81% of them stay there. But then maybe 7% go to South Atlantic. But here's something very interesting. So if you change the degree level to, for example, master's degree, so now the application updates to the master's degree program. So it looks like education and computer and IT are the programs that have master's degrees, but now education is tops. And New York is still at 85%. But if we change it again and we look at the doctoral, engineering becomes the degree program. And then we can see professional scientific becomes the new industry. And then in New York, there's only 28% that stay there. And this is 1 year after their degree. So New York, they go down to South Atlantic, but it's only, 22% here. So the numbers really change as the years go by, of course. Okay, and then we have the Veterans Employment Outcomes, or VEO Explorer, which can examine how veterans fared during past recessions. VEO is our new experimental U.S. Census Bureau statistics on labor market outcomes for recently discharged enlisted Army veterans. These statistics are tabulated by military specialization services, characteristics, employer, industry, if employed, and veteran demographics. They are generated by matching service member information with a national database of jobs using state-of-the-art confidentiality protection mechanisms to protect the underlying data. The VEO are made possible through a data sharing partnership between the U.S. Army, state labor market information offices, and the U.S. Census Bureau. VEO data are currently available at the state and national level. In this screenshot, we can see the earnings for all cohorts compared to infantry. It shows earnings in the 25, 50, and 75 percentile 1 year after discharge. Next, we can see earnings of the pay grades of those in the 25, 50, and 75 percentile after 1 year discharge, beginning with private and working our way up to staff sergeant. We also have E7 through E9 on another button. In this slide, we can see the earnings by percentiles and the industries that veterans go into 1 year post-discharge. So we can see that they go into mining is clicked here. We can see communication, manufacturing, and I think that's health. And then this shows us earnings by state which is Colorado. I chose Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada, along with the national numbers of those in the 50 percentile 1 year post-discharge. And finally, in this slide, we can look at the earnings by race. So let's go live again. And I will click on the LEHD tab, and I'll go down to the PSEO Explorer. And I'll click on that. And then here, just what we can see is occupation for all occupants and the industry general. So just to show you how it works, up at the top, we can look at all of the different specializations for military, and you can choose any of these, detailed occupation all the way down to occupation by state. We can click on service characteristics, so we can look at the range and years of services, pay grade, and occupation by pay grade. You can click on demographic, which is the exit of cohort, sex, race and ethnicity, enlisted educational level. We saw the industries in the other screenshot, and then you can choose state. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on demographic, and we can look at race and ethnicity. And then here we have white alone, Black or African American. We can see American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian alone, Native Hawaiian, or 2 or more race groups. So if I hover over the top bar, we can see Asian alone, those that are in the 75 percentile, 1 year post-discharge, they earn $54,230. While if you go down to the lowest bar chart for the Native Hawaiian, you can see that they earn $23,540. So you can just play around and get to know other things, and it's very exciting when you click on something and that makes sense to you, and you want to see what's out there and what's more. So these web-based analysis and visualization tools provide accessibility to the data for a wide variety of user needs and levels of statistical expertise. Many of our stakeholders are more likely to use web-based tools than download and manipulate them with raw data files. Along those same lines, these types of applications ease users into sessions of data exploration. Exploring the data is an excellent way to learn intricacies of the statistics and discover features that you might not have tested otherwise. Analysis tools also help to provide real-world context for the data by enabling easy comparisons over time, geography, and characteristics. This contextual perspective often comes about when playing with visualization of the data. Visualizations change the way we understand the statistics and lead directly to greater insights, which can lead to more relevant and impactful storytelling. We also use these tools to promote our data partnerships and products to all stakeholders and to expand understanding of our data throughout the federal statistical system. And last but certainly not least, we build these tools for our state partners. We value our voluntary partners and hope that these tools significantly improve access to LED data and help to streamline data processes in their states. So with that, I thank you very much, and I really appreciate everyone spending their afternoons with me. So at this time, I'm going to hand it off to Paulina, and we're going to do a little bit of Q&A.
Yes, thank you very much, Erlene, for that presentation. And at this time, we do have some questions from the audience. We've been tracking your questions, and thank you for sending those in. So I'll go right in with the first question. And they ask if the year is the date that was reported out or the year the data was collected.
So it's the year the data was reported out. So the states send us their data, for example, from 2018 or from 2020 Q1, and then we take that data and we take out all of the confidentiality and all of the personal stuff, and we combine that with all of the other data sets that we have to create the data set.
Okay. The second question is, how can updates to the data be received as shown in the analysis settings slide?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
So how can updates to the data be received as they're shown in the analysis settings slide?
Okay, so we usually try to, if you want to get on our listserv, if you go to the Gov Delivery and type in LEHD, that's when we send out all of our new releases. If anything, you can send me an email and I can definitely tag you in it.
Thank you very much, Arlene. And I have posted Arlene's email and phone number for all attendees in the chat for your reference. The next question is inflow, outflow another way to say workforce efficiency for a given region?
No, we just basically use that for those coming into the area and those coming out of the area. So it's more of a commuting pattern than efficiency.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. Next question is apprenticeship or certified trained people like CDL drivers considered low skill, or are they included in the high school and other education?
It would just depend on what their education level is. So I just use that personally as low skill because everyone is different in their trainings because a lot of the other workforce jobs have side training. So I just use low skilled for high school and no college for this presentation.
Okay. Next question is, can PSEO also filter by ancestry?
No, it does not. Sorry. We don't have any type of demographics in that yet.
Mm-hmm. Next question, are there any filters available to limit what types of post-secondary training are included?
So the filter is when you're able to just choose which programs you want to look at. So, and it goes all the way down. I mean, there are some universities that have the community college in there. So we have that information too. I hope that answered the question.
And the next question is actually related to that. They're asking if there is similar data for any community colleges.
Yes, so some of the states in the PSEO does have community college in it. And in fact, Maine has only community college in it.
Next question is, why are not all states in PSEO, and what is QWI? Okay,
so I'll answer the second question first, because that's the easiest. So QWI stands for the Quarterly Workforce Indicator. And that's how we're able to look at hires, separations, employment counts, and earnings. And then the second question, I forgot it already. I'm sorry. What was the first question?
Why are not all 50 states in PSEO?
Okay, so thank you for repeating that. The PSEO is brand new, so it's experimental data currently. And so everyone wants to join, but our resources, which is within LEHD, we don't have that many resources. So we have one person pretty much putting in all the data that we receive from the state. So we are working contracts and partnerships and agreements for other states as we go. When we first started, it was just Texas, and everybody saw what great data it produced. So then Colorado wanted in, and then New York wanted in. Everybody wanted in, and everybody still wants in, but we just don't have the resources to put everybody in right now. We're just doing it little by little.
Perfect. Thank you, Erlene. And for next question is for PSEO and VEO, is it possible to get information within a county? And if there are even smaller geographic areas possible?
Not yet. No, we go all the way for the PSEO. We go to the state level and national level, state level and region, actually. And then for the VEO, we just have all the way down to the state level.
And they're asking if you can show the top industries that veterans transfer to.
Okay. So that's on, do I have control? Or Paulina, that if you scroll up, oh, okay, I'll take control. What are you going to do? It's in the PowerPoint, I think, or
if you want, I can go up on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
You tell me. Yeah,
and
you go, right?
This varies. So the industry that they're most, oh, you passed it, sorry. One more. There, oh, go back. Go back one more time. Okay, there, right there. So this varies. So this is the top industries regarding infantry. And so you can have the option to choose what different military occupations that you want to look at, or even what state, or if you want to look at it national. I mean, it just varies what the top industry is usually. But this one shows that mining is the top industry for infantry.
Thank you very much, Erlene. And I think you answered this question already. What is the smallest geography in LEHD? So the smallest geography, it varies on which application we're looking at, but the lowest is for the loads data, which is on the map, and we can go all the way down to the census block. When it comes to QWI, the lowest is the counties. And then when it comes to job, the lowest is metropolitan, and then VEO and PSEO are states. Perfect. And they're asking do we have access to the Post-Secondary Employment Outcome Explorer?
Yes. So that was, if you go to lehd.ces.census.gov, it was on the left-hand side where it had application, and I believe it's like the 5th bullet down from that, but yes, everyone has access. All of these data tools are free and accessible 24/7. Wonderful.
And is there data available on people from the food and hospitality industry?
Yes, there is. I didn't use this as an example, but since I'm from Hawaii, one of our largest industry is accommodations and accommodations and hotel services. But you would think that industry would be the top. But if you're looking at education, I found that if you only have a high school degree, a high school diploma and some college, versus a bachelor's degree, you earn $300 less than somebody who has a bachelor's degree. So that's something to think about when you're, looking at student loans and everything. Like, what are you going to get, the money, the bang for your buck kind of thing. So, so yes, we do have that information. We have employment count. We look at what their earnings are. We can see race and ethnicity. We can see education. We can see sex on that too, gender. So yes, thanks for that question.
Thank you, Earlene. And we do have a couple of last questions. Is there any password or registration necessary to get into the Explorer
Nope.
to look at the information?
Not at all. You just go in there and you just work your magic. But just to let everybody know, all of our applications have an area that says help and documentation at the top. And you can click on that and that'll walk you through every single analysis that you want to learn.
Wonderful. And the last two questions before we wrap up this session. This question is there data on job loss due to the pandemic? Maybe the census data was collected before the pandemic hit.
Is there data before the pandemic hit? Yes. All of this data is before the pandemic hit.
Okay. Perfect. And the last question, since we are increasingly becoming a biracial, multiracial country, what and who defines a person's race? It appears it's very subjective.
So that is on, that comes from the decennial censuses. So you actually are the one that determines race or ethnic, the race or biracial or whatever you claim on your census. That's where we're getting the information from.
Very well. Thank you very much, Earlene, for answering our audience's question. That concludes our Q&A portion. So now, to wrap it up, I would like to share some information on census.gov and Census Academy page. So you can access short how-to data gems videos on census data products, courses, and webinars to increase your knowledge of census data. And you can visit this site at census.gov/academy or click the links on this slide. You will receive a copy of this presentation in the next 2 business days as well. The Census Bureau has a team of specialists, of data dissemination specialists, who can assist in providing trainings, workshops, and presentations to show you a variety of census data tools, data sets, and programs. And you can request a free data training session. You can email census.askdata@census.gov. If you enjoyed today's webinar, you can visit census.gov and simply type 2021 Data Summit Series on the top search bar to register for upcoming data summits that are happening between now and August 2021. If you also wish to contact any of the 6 regional offices of the Census Bureau that are responsible for data collection, data dissemination, and geographic operations, you can visit our website to find your regional office and their contact information. At this time, I would like to thank our census leadership, our speakers, Kathy Lacey, Rachel Moskowitz, of course, our key presenter, Arlene Dowell, and Samantha Steen for technical support. And as a friendly reminder, you can expect a copy of today's presentation and a resource sheet at a later date. And that concludes our webinar. So we thank you for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. You can disconnect at this time.